Hello and welcome back, everybody, to episode 112 of the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. Welcome back, and we have some good questions today. Things are good. I just flew back from New York City, and boy, my arms are tired. Yeah, things are good. We had a great RKC2. I'm looking forward to some other kettlebell events coming up, and things are going well at the university. We have a new course out on the advanced methods of easy strength, and a lot of people are enjoying it, and that makes me very happy. It makes me feel like I'm, getting things done. And one of the things I think a lot of people miss when they first go to the university is how many downloads and book-like things we have there. I was asking Brian the other day about, do people download them? He says, it's interesting because people really don't go to it. So if you're a member, remember to go to the downloads and, read some of the stuff. We've got stuff on fat loss, on Olympic lifting, on throwing, all kinds of stuff, pressing reset stuff from Tim Anderson. I mean, it's a real collection of things. I think you'll like it. So, check into that. It's part of your membership. The site is more than the forum and the workout generator, which are by far the two most popular things. But don't forget all the free stuff, the essays, the downloads, all the rest. Hey, let's get started on the questions, okay? The first question, I don't know if I misunderstand it or if there's an issue, but Zally asks us, what is your opinion on heavy deadlifts using your T-bar deadlift setup? Now, see, the problem with the T-bar, do you mean trap bar or do you mean the Hungarian core blaster, the T-frame thing? Is it safe and or reasonable to go up to equivalent weights as you would go on a barbell? So if it's a trap bar, the only reason I like trap bars is for farmer walks. I think they're really, they're great for farmer walks. I know that the trap bar deadlift is good for a lot of people, but it's that thing is done well. I like the trap bar deadlift. Done when I usually see, I don't like it at all, where the knees come in and they round the back and all that silliness. If you mean the deficit deadlift, the T-bar, the Hungarian core blaster, the way we teach it at this gym is to drop the weight towards your heels to make sure you're hinging. And if the T handle is back more and more towards the heels, your own body gets in the way before you start to fold over. I think it's a good. I would not make that your basic deadlift. I don't. When I looked at the old Soviet texts on the deficit deadlift, they were big fans of it, including a leaping variation, which I've never done, but I looked at it and was like, that's kind of an interesting idea. It's like the leaping goblet squat. I'm a big fan of it, but I've never actually done one. Maybe I'll do one in the gym right now to change that. But the problem with the deficit deadlift is that I think you're in a narrow band of safety. I'm certainly no safety psychopath, but when you do the deficit deadlift, as you glide down, you'll notice there's a point where you run out of space physically because you kind of bind yourself up. And if you go too deep, I don't know what you're working. I'm not a real this exercise builds this muscle and that exercise builds that muscle kind of person. But on the deficit deadlift, it just seems to be it goes right back to the old thing. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I always stay fairly light with deficit deadlifts. I think at our gym, we might have 130 or 40 pounds on it at the most, which is, not very much considering what we're doing in some of the other exercises. So for me, I would much rather see you do sets of 10, 12, 20 in the deficit deadlift, all at a nice, reasonable pace, well within yourself, because, the problem with a back injury, and I'm not saying you're going to get one from doing this, but if you do get a back injury, they're just such a pain to get over. It affects everything, and so I'd rather you err on making that more of a pumping exercise than it is a strength exercise. Zally, I hope that helps. We have a question from Manuel, and he says, I want to start the rite of passage program, the 13-week schedule, with the 28-kilo bell. I believe you mentioned in the podcast that you have completed the program, yeah, with the 28 kilo bell. So I'd like to ask you if you felt like it was missing squats or carries. Manuel, if you read the program, it says variety 2 days of the week. So you do the program, you have a heavy day, a medium day, and a light day, and then the other 2 days are variety days. I stuck in front squats and sled pulls and the Highland Game work on the other 2 days. So you're not missing anything if you feel like it. Now, having said that, I think you should do goblet squats in the warm-ups. And to be honest, it's a pretty full program. And if you're going to do it for 13 weeks and do it. I mean, there's that one day where you do the 75 clean and presses, left hand 75 clean and presses, right hand and 75 pull-ups. That's a fair amount of work. That's a lot of loaded carries, just, picking the weight up off the ground. Yeah, so I guess I'm giving you 2 options. Your variety days, or you can just go and for 13 weeks not do them. I just don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's funny. I mean, I love squats in programs, and I love loaded carries. I mean, that's real obvious. But at the same time, if you dropped them for what you're saying is a whole season, a quarter of the year, hardest thing to explain to people that 52 divided by 4 is 13, not 12. You always see 12-week programs, but I always thought you should go 13. But we're not going to worry about it. 13 is a Fibonacci number, and that's why I like it more. But you'd be if you decided to do a 13-week sprint specialization program, or 13 weeks where you diet in real heavy with this or that or this, I think it would be a real boon to the other things when you went back to them. I can remember when I first started playing around with those high rep squat protocols, and I didn't really Olympic lift during those times, but after about 6 weeks of doing high rep squats, when I went back and just Olympic lifted and just had to do a clean and jerk, I was like, oh, this is nice. So I just think there's advantage in if you go push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry 3 days a week for the next 30 years, that's great. That's fantastic. And if you decide to do, I'm going to focus on this and this and this for 13, clean up the things I'm missing for 13, I think that's fine too. I think the body likes variation. It's interesting. I think the body likes variation, but I also think the body likes to do the same thing over and over and over. If you're a traveler, you certainly pick up on some of those rhythms of the universe, of your own physical side. There are things about coming home that you miss when you get there, and I just think that's a part of being human. I hope I helped, Manuel. I just, if you want to just do the 3 days a week and just do the exercises as written, it's a really hard program, and especially the 28. 28 will sneak up on you on that day you do the 75 clean and presses. I'm just telling 150, I guess. I'm just telling you, it starts to add up over I don't know how long it took me. I had to have been over an hour. Yeah, it was long. I remember I started doing house chores because I just kind of got bored. So, hey, good luck. It's a great program, and I recommend it. Thank you. Okay, we have a question from Zach. A different kind of question, but it's okay. I'm writing today with a question regarding combining kettlebell training with a daily yoga practice. I have approximately 5 years of experience training with kettlebells and around 3 years of experience practicing yoga. I currently practice yoga daily, and I'm in search of a programming strategy to integrate kettlebell work into my weekly routine. Are there specific kettlebell exercises you'd recommend to complement a yoga practice? Further, how would you recommend approaching weekly training volume and long-term progression? I mean, if I were you, I would just say these days a week I kettlebell and these days a week I do yoga. But I can understand, I mean, certain things like the sun salutation can be done daily. I would, if I were you, focus a little bit more on the kettlebell grinds. The Turkish get-up is very much like a yoga, like a sun salutation. The goblet squat will work well because it is a grind. The presses will work well because they're a grind. My only concern about yoga, of course, is that, you know, when you do all that flexibility work, you know, you do. We prove it here at the gym all the time. When people don't agree with us, we do the Steve Ilgs vents, and after you vent, you don't want to lift weights. You don't have any the vents of those really strict stretches we do on the wrists and feet. And when you're finished with them, you know you don't feel like you want to grip a bar. So my knock on pure flexibility yoga work is that you need a little break after the yoga work before you lift weights, I think. Now there's going to be someone that says, well, I do it this way, because people online who are anonymous always are perfect. Yeah, it's amazing how anonymous is always so good at things. But you know, I just had a question about the rite of passage. You know, the rite of passage 3 days a week mixed with a yoga practice would be pretty good. If you were to do something like go to the workout generator or just do a kettlebell only program, you know, and your yoga practice, I see the two of them working well. The first Strength and Health magazine I ever bought up there had an article on yoga and weightlifting and how the two of them fit well together. And that great runner and writer from the 70s, I want to say his last name was Moore, Moore, I think, but he had a whole book on combining running with yoga practice. As in everything, I think sometimes it's easier to take yoga a little too far sometimes with some of the movements that, but yeah, I think you'll be fine. You asked me to recommend training in long-term progress. You are going to be going down a road by yourself. I don't have experience with it, but you know, as I understand it, yoga is a practice, so progression doesn't work well with practice. You just gently nudge yourself forward. Whereas in the weight room, you know, there's linear progression where you pound yourself in the face forward. Personally, I think you should just get to work in on both and try to find a balance for you that feels good. Whether or not, you know, like I wouldn't do the 10,000 swing challenge in yoga at the same time. I would just worry about, you know, stuff coming off, you know, like an old car. But yeah, I don't have great suggestions here, but I like where your head's at here, Zach. Okay, thank you. We have a question from Mike. Mike says, I have been training for hunting for the past 5 months and predominantly been rucking, doing strength work, 2 sets of 5, push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, good. Mobility work, treadmill, cardio intervals, and metcoms. This has got me into great shape. Well, good for you. I have a 6-month season ahead of me, which involves on a fortnightly basis, lots of backpacking, much of it strenuous due to steep hills and long distance heavy packs, as well as the actual hunting in varying terrain. My question is, you're doing great, so let's make it even more complicated. Can I use the mountain climbing program to maintain my fitness over the next 5 to 6 months? Or is it better to go back to a monthly generalist style programming cycling through the metcoms, cardio, mobility, rucking, and strength work? You know, Mike, I'm just going to say this, man. If it's not broken, don't fix it. You know, if it's going well, don't fix it. What you might want to do is take that template of the mountain climbing program and say, you know, I like what Dan's doing here with this idea, and I like and just make it work with what you're doing. To me, that is also the highest way of doing things. When I read Tommy Kono book about 3 days a week weightlifting, and I read Jim Schmidt's about his Olympic lifting 3-day program, and then I say, I like this here and I like this here. I only want to lift weights, Olympic lift 3 days a week. And so, you know, I'm going to take, I like this. This works for me. This has always worked for me. And then all of a sudden you have a program. And it's interesting because there's a second part of that, is that sometimes you end up with, this really works well for me. And the bad part is sometimes you leave dangling the things you need to do on the other programs. So yeah, why don't you do this? Think about what blends well with what you want to do from the mountain climbing program and stick that in. Even if it's just something like you're increasing the amount of time you're rucking every week or something like that. Or and also too, don't forget easy days. I would strongly suggest you throw in at least one day a week of a really long, unloaded walk, just to make sure you're getting those other qualities you might be missing. Okay, great question. Thank you. Enrique writes me, whenever I see the words sumo and conventional together, they are separated by an or. But my question is, should one train the sumo and conventional deadlifts at the same time? How would you periodize it? Enrique, not once, not ever have I done a sumo deadlift ever in my life. When you talk to powerlifters, at least the guys I know, they'll sometimes tell you, you're born to do a certain kind of deadlift. And I think, Enrique, so when you talk to the elite powerlifters, their ideas, if sumo works for you, you sumo. If round back works for you, you round back. If this works for you, you do that. Most of the people I work with, the heavy deadlift, we do deadlifts, but those massive, big deadlifts just don't seem to have a lot of carryover. So I'm not going to answer the question, Enrique, only because I don't know. I think there'd be value if you were a serious powerlifter in having a whole toolbox of just different deadlifts, heels together, or snatch grip, clean grip, overhand grip, and a couple others just to give some variety, because I love variety. But I don't really have the skill to answer that. Sorry. Jay says, I've been working out over my whole life and more consistently for the past few years in the strong first approach to kettlebells. Well, good. I work for a competitive company to this organization, so that's great. Thanks for asking me. As consistently as one can with two small children can work out. I'd like to add some more strength and mass as I go into my 40s. I also want to approach working out with more of a seasons mentality. We just talked about that. Going for a 3 to 4 month segment and then switching priorities, keep it interesting. I wouldn't just say keep it interesting. I just think that's the way we are designed to go. If you spent a whole summer on the beach, running up and down on the chasing the waves and playing frisbee and crashing around the whole summer on the beach, and then in the fall, got yourself ready for an Olympic lifting meet, and then in the winter, I don't know, you decided to do a powerlifting meet. In the spring, you want to do a sprint and hurdles and a track meet. At the end of that year, you might look and feel pretty good. First of all, is this an okay sequence? Of course. Start with building strength. Yeah, if you actually followed my material instead of the strong first approach, you would know that I always recommend easy strength to any adult before you move on. I'm a huge believer in getting strong and then focusing on the other qualities, because it just works. And second, would you recommend mass building with kettlebells, a pull-up bar, and a heavy sandbag? I guess if that's what you have, go to the workout generator. We've got stuff in there. Type that in, and you'll get it. You'll need to do sets of a week of 8s, a week of 10s, a week of 12s probably. You'd have to do a whole body thing. You're gonna have to squat. You're gonna have to or you could just do the book Mass Made Simple, which I recommend. That's. You want to put on 5 to 10 pounds of muscle and switch out fat. And I've said on this podcast, Jay, 100 times that adding muscle, lean body mass, and losing fat are the two hardest things you can do. And you want to do both with kettlebells and a heavy sandbag. And that's, you can certainly do it. You're just going to have to do the reps and sets that are going to work with those. For your goals, which is the 8 to 12 range. Okay, thank you. Finally, we have a very short question here from Mac. Is there a challenge you recommend after the 10,000 swing challenge? Anybody who's done the 10,000 swing challenge, actually done it, and has taken my advice about what to do next, tend to email me and say, yeah, you're right. After the 10,000 swing challenge, I tell people to do 3 whole body workouts a week. For about maybe 4 weeks, and push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded, carry, 3 sets of 8, 5 sets of 5, whatever you can get done and enjoy. But after the 10,000 swing challenge, it's time to move back into the weight room and just lift weights. Turn off the engines, enjoy it. Many people find that the 10,000 swing challenge gives them a pretty good work capacity, so they can handle that 5 sets of 5 in something like a rack deadlift and a front squat. Though 5 sets of 5 in the front squat and the rack deadlift in one workout, that'd be a tough day. Thanks, Mac. Leah asks a question. Just want to say how I found easy strength the perfect pairing for my endurance activities. Good, Leah. I know it's not the purpose of the program, but I've seen, actually, Leah, the program comes from a long distance coach that we have adopted and adapted for everybody else. So actually, it is the purpose of the program is to make distance runners run better. But I've seen great results by combining my running training and the easy strength training. I like it because it takes less than 30 minutes in the gym, even with a warm-up, and I can usually fit a run workout and a strength workout on the same day on most days, usually with the break in between at different parts of the day. And I would even suggest, Leah, sometimes, do your easy strength workout, and when you put the bar down in that last rep, go out for a run. Just get a sense of it. Just to see what it feels like to run, right after. You might find some interesting things happening with body composition. Also, because most days are a moderate weight, it's not too taxing on my body or mind while I also do my run training. But I also have some fun and push the weights once a week on the 5, 3, 2, and 6 single days. Good. I don't have to think too hard about programming. I just show up and do it. That's what I love. As soon as I finish the podcast, I'm going to go do an easy strength workout. I decided it would probably be a good idea to change up my strength workouts for variety, your park bench and bus bench principle. I moved into a standard 3 sets of 10, 3 days a week, and I felt mentally and physically tired the whole month. I made myself stick to it for a month, but today I started back in another 40 days and the workout felt great. I don't really have a question, but I wanted to give feedback that the Easy Strength program works well with my endurance training and would love to hear any tips you might have. Yeah, the issue with the 3 sets of 10 is that's a hypertrophy program. And you probably found that volume, the jump in volume, you probably tripled your volume, which you probably didn't pick up on. 3 sets of 10 is 30 reps, and that's a lot more volume. So I don't know. Thanks for the feedback. My advice to you in the future might be, if you're going to move into a hypertrophy program, I don't know if we can go much lower than that. I was going to say 3 sets of 8, but maybe with what your goals are, 2 sets of 10. So double the volume. I love these math questions when it comes to what we do. Because sometimes someone will, and Leah, you seem like a very bright person. The fact that you did the workouts means you're exceptional. But you can see sometimes when it's something that to me was so obvious when I read the 3 sets of 10. Well, you tripled the volume. That's, it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get, you've been running 10 Ks, and then all of a sudden you decide, well, I'm gonna now train for a marathon and run. So once a week, if you're running 10 Ks, you should probably get about, 30 K. And all of a sudden you decide to go, you're running 10 Ks and you decide to throw a 50 K in every week. And you'd be like, oh, I feel very tired. Well, yeah, you put way too much volume in there. Great question. And thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it more than you know. So thank you. Wow, that was it. That was fast. Episode 112 went smooth and easy. If you have questions, always remember, send them to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I do my best to answer each and every one. I feel sometimes like I've answered the same question over and over. But that's okay, and I'll keep doing that. And actually, it makes me think that there are really, really specific questions that most people want to hear. So I'm Dan John from Dan John University. Thanks for listening.